part 2 of the KXLY4 News exclusive we first brought you at 5 o'clock. Next week, the state of Washington will release this man to live in Spokane, classified as a sexually violent predator. He has a history, an obsession, he called it, of sexually abusing children. He's still considered a danger to the community.
So why was he being released, and why, despite having no connections here, does a Western Washington judge think he belongs in Spokane? Durbin has convictions in Montana and Wyoming for sexually assaulting children. He was also caught watching kids through the windows of a Clark County, Washington home. For the last 9 years, he's been living at the Special Commitment Center at McNeil Island, classified as a sexually violent predator. Our Melissa Luck is working for you in depth on this breaking story tonight. She's not the only one asking why this is happening.
He once told a court he was aroused by kids and that it turned into an obsession. Once followed a 5-year-old girl into a church bathroom and sexually assaulted her. Once said in recorded testimony that he has gone into school bathrooms to masturbate because of his arousal by children. Yet next week, 57-year-old David Durbin will walk out of the Special Commitment Center on McNeil Island and arrive in Spokane County to live.
There's no way that you should be comfortable with this if you're a citizen of this community.
The judge says Durbin will be closely watched by his GPS and by an adult chaperone paid for by the state to keep an eye on him. He can't go to schools, arcades, bars, porn shops. He can't drive. He can't access pictures on his phone. Oh, and he can't be in contact with any other sex offenders, except for the 8 already living here in his new home on North Lincoln. And that's the exact reason a Clark County judge placed Durbin here, because Clark County doesn't have housing like this. Some other counties flat out forbid it. But Spokane?
The reason they're getting out is nobody wants to pay to house him anymore. This is an economic issue.
Frustrating for both Sheriff Knezevich and Spokane Police Chief Craig Meidel, who say the state wants to save money by emptying McNeil Island. Also, that Spokane property owners are taking big bucks in rent paid for by the state for guys like Durbin. And judges in other counties are placing them here because many other counties won't allow it.
There is a very small voice at the table of what about the victims? What about the community? And it's just not allowed enough voice yet.
The chief and sheriff say the criminal justice system gives priorities to offenders over victims.
They are going to empty McNeil Island, and these violent sexual predators are going to end up in our communities. These are people that should never see freedom again.
And Chief Meidel says local law enforcement has no say in their placement and no role in their supervision.
There's no requirement that the state notify the local law enforcement if there is a violation. So if this individual goes out and decides to violate any number of those pages and pages and pages of requirements, we don't have any way of knowing that.
2 years ago, a state doctor said Mr. Durbin continues to meet criteria as a sexually violent predator. Conditions could not be imposed that would adequately protect the community. Somehow, just a year later, another doctor said Mr. Durbin's condition has significantly changed. A risk a Clark County judge is willing to take, but one these men say is not worth trying in their community.
The number one priority should be and always should be the community. And if there's any doubt as to whether the community will be safe or not, I'm always going to lean towards keeping the community safe. And if
the only way we're going to make this change is the law is going to have to be changed. We're going to have our state legislature step in and say, you know, there are certain things that we're willing to pay to protect.
And for these men, that change can't come soon enough. The sheriff says he's been told by the state 7 more violent predators are coming to Spokane this year. I'm Melissa Luck, KXLY4 News.
So what happens next? Durbin's transition team is supposed to complete training of at least one of his proposed chaperones before his release. The Lincoln House also needs to assign a roommate for Durbin, also approved by his transition team. He's been assigned a social worker to supervise him closely for the first 72 hours after being released from McNeil Island. If all goes according to plan, he'll move to Spokane February 19th.
We have an in-depth article posted at KXLY.com right now about Durbin's history, the process, and this transition. We'll follow developments in this case closely as we get closer to that release date next week.